emergency edition of the Garden Report. I know, emergency.
The ambulance coming for Kemba.
That's yeah, exactly. Send the ambulance. Someone come get Kemba, and make this all go away.
And pick me up while you're at it.
Pick me up, right? Let's get into it real quick. We're just here. This was kind of impromptu, but just to catch everybody up with where we're at. And again, this is Jimmy Toscano, Bobby Manning, and so our developing situation involves one Kemba Walker, who earlier today, Brad Stevens was on a podcast on CLNS Media Network with Jeff Goodman and Bob Ryan, the Ryan and Goodman podcast, and he was their guest. And just kind of Jeff was just asking, hey, Kemba didn't look great at the end of last year. What's his status? And again, Bobby, you wrote about this today on CLNS Media and on Boston Sports Journal. Danny Ainge alluded to it. It wasn't a shock. However, I'm going to play it for you guys. Listen to Stevens talk and then just make your own interpretation on what you think here. This sounded like he was, and I'll give you my take afterwards.
Don't make us listen to it again.
I'm going to play the soundbite. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, he's working exceptionally hard on just continuing. The key to this whole thing with him is just strength in the knee. And so just continuing to take this opportunity when we're not playing, when we're not practicing, to really focus on that. Very similar to what we did at the beginning of the bubble. I think that there will be a transition like that because of the shortened season, the shortened off season. I don't expect, it'll be some time before he's going full speed for us, for sure.
Meaning that he might miss the beginning of the season, Brad?
We'll see how that all goes. We haven't settled on any timelines. This is more of a plan appropriately thing so that he can play uninhibited as he moves forward. A lot like the bubble. Again, the bubble.
Okay. We've upset Jimmy Toscano.
You scared, Jimmy? Want me to
It
give you
doesn't
some
sound. It
optimism?
doesn't sound any better the 10th time you hear it.
Yeah, this is a disaster because of the fact that you have him for 3 more years. And that's what Ainge said back at his presser. We're trying to get him right for 3 years. If you can't get him right for the first full year, it's probably not looking good for the full 4 years. And you're talking about a player option at the end, too.
Yeah.
I will say for this season, though, I have a tiny bit of optimism out of this because...
Of course you do.
Because they manage it well. In the bubble, he came back roaring through that 8-game stretch. They had to sit him a few times. And they made it work. Now, the postseason, as it got along, as you were doing the every other night thing, it was tough. So what do you look at here? Last year, you had a team with 4 guys at the top who bore all the scoring load. I think it was 76% of the points came from the top 4. Now, all of a sudden, you're taking 2 of those guys in Hayward and Kemba out on many nights. How do you pick that up? Is Jeff Teague enough coming off the bench? I don't think so. You don't have the wing scoring behind the starters there. Not to mention, you're putting more of a ball handling pressure on Jason.
More Marcus Smart shots. That's what you get.
More Marcus Smart shots, more Jason Tatum ball handling, more Jaylen Brown ball handling. So you're putting 3 guys in a tough position there.
Jimmy?
Yeah, so it's hard to spin this any positive way, obviously. My hope is that there's going to be a lot of NBA teams that are going to be coming out very slow out of the gates, especially some of the teams that did go relatively deep into the bubble. So I'm not sure if the Celtics are going to be the only one that are, bringing some of their guys in slowly or resting guys on off nights. I don't think the NBA has any grounds to come at teams for giving guys, nights off. I don't think that they'll even consider that this season based on the quick turnaround here. But yeah, it's tough to hear Brad talk about Kemba Walker like he's going to be in a Walker half the season. You really don't want to hear that type of talk a month before things really ramp up here. So wasn't pumped to hear that. And then you hear the reports that, whether you believe them or not, that Danny Ainge tried to trade Kemba Walker, called a bunch of teams about Kemba Walker and clearly didn't get anywhere there.
That was the first red flag. And the guy look, I don't want to play the.
Yes, you do. Just do
look,
it.
I'm not looking for the win, but as soon as that stuff came out, I told you I want out of all my Kemba shares. I want out.
Eat that W, Zan. You did call that.
But I'm just saying, I'm reading the tea leaves. I'm not saying I don't like Kemba the player. I loved the signing at the beginning of last year, but you're putting everything together here. The maintenance, not getting him together. The thing that scared me the most was having a small knee issue, fine, during the season. Taking 4 months off and still having that knee issue after we were told that, oh, God, Kemba Walker's first soundbite to us, to the media, right after he was came back was, oh, that 4 months did me so great. Oh, I loved it. It was the best. It's just what my knee needed. And then a week later, it's okay. Kemba's experiencing soreness again. They're going to be managing him.
They've been so good at downplaying this, haven't they? Like every time.
And I was like, no. I've seen this movie before. This is how it goes. And downplay it. Oh, we're just worried about long term. And these are the things that you say when you're like, yeah, I don't freaking know.
What did we say over the summer? We're like, we know how this goes with the Boston Celtics.
Right.
So this is something that's going to be with him for the next 3 seasons. And that's another hit. This isn't going to get any better. This goes back to knee surgeries he had in Charlotte. You have to question maybe the Hornets, when they had the chance to keep him, said, this knee's not right. Like, we know it better than the Celtics do. So just let him go. The Celtics were in a desperate situation where a free agent wanted to come, and they do it.
What does it tell you? That though, Bobby, think of that. So the narrative the past few days has been, what's Charlotte doing? Why would they pay Gordon all this money at this age with his injury history and not have
That's a separate question.
What I'm saying is, why would they do this and not have paid Kemba the year before? Well, maybe you have your answer here, is they didn't think that Kemba was worth 4 years worth of whatever it was that they were going to get off of that. It's telling that they would feel more comfortable 1 year later with 4 years of Gordon Hayward giving his injury history than Kemba Walker.
That you can't justify that signing yet. I still will not justify.
No, it's two separate things. It feels like Charlotte could be making the same mistake now that they could have made before. So it's
whether they are or they aren't. Whether they are or they aren't, again, at the end of the day, the telling things are the injury during that gap of time, that where we rested during the quarantine situation, came back, had to manage, and the fact that, again, we're entering a management situation at the beginning of a year. Granted, it's a turnaround, but I don't know that 3-4 months off would change it a ton. It just feels like this is something that's going to have to be managed for the rest of his career, which means likely, some sort of arthritic or degenerative condition or something that's just going to linger and not go away. So again, you have good days, you have bad days, but these things don't get better. And that's really, I'm not.
When you're a guy like Kemba, your style of play is, you're quick, you're fast, you're shifty, you're getting in and out of the lanes, you're these ridiculous shots. You use your knees, not saying other positions don't, but he's the type of guy that needs to be feeling good because that's his worth to the team, right? It is his shiftiness, his quickness, his spin move, whatever it is. So if it's something that he's thinking about, or if it's something that he can only go 80%, well, now you if you're going 80%, you're just another point guard in the NBA, because that 20% is the difference between Kemba Walker and a lot of these guys.
And they need him now more than ever, Jimmy, to take It's like when you're one of 4, you can kind of, have nights where you can hide a little bit or not be your best. But now he's one of 3 who have to carry a tremendous offensive burden with really nothing behind them. So Kemba Walker just kind of drifting into the shadows and becoming not a role player, but not a dynamic superstar. Anything less than all-star level is way short of what you need out of Kemba Walker on this.
Bobby, maybe you don't know this off the top of your head, but was there a guard around the Celtics' first pick this year that if they were really worried about Kemba and thought, I know they went with Peyton Pritchard in the second, but in the first round, maybe if they were concerned long term, would they have considered,
Yeah, they were sandwiched between 2 point guards, Kira Lewis at 13 and Cole Anthony at 15. So on each side there, you had a chance to take a guy. I still like going with Naismith because of all the reasons we talked about.
I do too. I'm just saying, like, if they're concerned about not having Kemba for 30 games and not having him at the start of the year, maybe that tells you maybe they're not as concerned as we are. Maybe
this still calls into question where they see themselves, because we get news in the last few days that Ainge was willing to go as high as $100 million to keep Hayward. Now,
I want to get to that in a minute.
Now, who knows how truthful that was? Might just be talking after the fact. But if you're going forward with Kemba now, and we have the rumors there too, you were willing to go forward with Hayward here. Were you all in on this situation here? And if that's the case, why not last year when you had Kemba going at the All-Star level? You had some concerns around that trade deadline at February when this started. Why didn't you load up, go all in last year, like it looked like that year was going to be at that point in time?
Well,
That's another
that's
thing
not how
that we
people
go
do
back
business. Nobody loads up for a year. You just don't do it. Nobody does that. It's not a real thing.
You know how people
Nobody loads up for a year.
Well, they didn't do anything.
The only way people who load
Well, I think it's come into clear focus here based on what you just said. I think the if we sleuth
Last
it all
year looks
together,
so much more important now.
but if we sleuth it all together, Kemba being rumored in this Jrue Holiday situation, and the initial reaction from Jimmy and a bunch of other people was Jrue freaking Holiday. Like for Kemba, that's crazy. But like it seems to feel like they were trying to move off of Kemba, even if it was Jrue, or to have that salary in place to just get that off the books, and then either sign Hayward or trade Hayward. This is what we've kind of learned in this week or two. They might have been ready to go forth with Hayward and not Kemba.
They're stuck in between now.
And they ended up in the other situation where they're stuck with Kemba and they lost Hayward.
Well, they may have not been able. Maybe Kemba. I mean, maybe he doesn't pass. Is it the point where he wouldn't pass a physical in a trade?
Who knows, right?
That's a good question too.
Because if you're the Celtics and you're worried about Kemba, like it sounds like they might be, you're going to give away a little bit more to flip him for a Jrue Holiday.
Yeah, that's how it goes. You're giving away a little more to make the other team accept it, like that Isaiah situation. That deal almost didn't get done because of his health there. So they're stuck. They're going to make this work. The only thing I'll say optimistically is that they had a good plan that largely worked last year. You talk about all the shiftiness, Jimmy. We saw that against Philadelphia. First half of that Toronto series, strong. We did. And then you get into the later stages of that one, and he broke down a little bit. Bounced back with some 20-pointers against Miami. So it's not like he's – I mean, they're not –
I think the numbers were deceptive. I think he was off most – I think he was Kemba light even at his best last year upon returning. I don't think we ever saw that guy who could take over a game as he did a few times during the year.
You never saw the November production.
You never saw it. It wasn't just the production. It wasn't the get out of my effing way, getting to his spot and knocking down those shots when he'd get on those streaks and be like, wow, that's what you get Kemba for.
So maybe that guy's gone.
He wasn't moving like that.
It's way too soon to say that he's gone. I mean, I think I saw one. I think there was one game against Toronto where he looked like himself and he had like a really nice.
He had a couple good ones against Miami. I mean, it was hit or miss, and that's probably how it's going to be now.
Yeah, obviously, we all know he didn't look the way that we saw in the regular season, and we said that right now. And I think, John, what you said is you'd be more concerned about Kemba Walker if he wasn't hurt than if he was hurt. Does that ring a bell?
Yes. Well, we did.
It's in the tape library somewhere.
No, I mean, saying if that's who he is, this guy's not great right now. That's what I was saying when we were watching him last in the postseason. He just didn't. He just couldn't do what he was used to doing. So he has to be right. And look, when Jeff asked Brad about it, the soundbite that we played earlier in the pod, I didn't play the front of it, but what Jeff asked him outright was basically like, so I've watched him play I've watched Kemba play since college. He clearly wasn't right at the end of last year, and Brad
said too.
Huh?
That's what Danny said too.
And Brad did not at all dispel that. He was like, yeah, it's all about strengthening the thing. You're talking about stuff, that's like, really like we gotta do the best we can to keep this thing going. I mean, just some of the quotes here. And Bobby, you wrote the story, it's the bubble was unique, 4 months off, different changes, ramping up,
Yeah, so that's a good point too. He did put some important distinctions in there. If we go back to July, he basically showed up at Auerbach Center. They had no clue what was going on, it sounded like, and all of a sudden that knee just started flaring up. Yep. So who knows what he was doing during those 4 months? Who knows what kind of regimen he was on? It was clear him and Grant were working out together in Charlotte, so there was probably some work being done there, maybe more work than needed to be done.
Yeah.
The point is now he's going to be in Boston this weekend.
The key is strengthening the knee.
Yeah, they have a month to
Right.
work on that stuff.
Similar to what it was at the bubble. He shows up, he tries to do basketball, it hurts, like it's.
But guys, I mean, this is my point. Don't you think they managed it fairly well in the bubble? And now the conditions are even more ideal to manage it a little bit.
Yeah, but he's got to play 72 games plus playoffs here. And again, I know they're going to manage it, but you got to really you don't have the benefit of an offseason to do a bunch of different things. Again, people with conditions like this, you do spend some time doing just weights away from basketball activities, strengthening the areas around the knee so it can withstand a little bit more, because you can't do that kind of stuff during the season. There's too many rigors, and now it's going to be an accelerated timetable to get this thing up and running. I mean, you may be looking at no back-to-backs, and possibly up to what? 20 to 25 out of the 72 games off for him. We're just
and do they have
speculating
the
here, but
personnel to overcome that?
That's a lot, because you do not have personnel to overcome it, at all, as you said.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what makes me question like some of the maybe like their free agent targets or like their draft. I mean, you can't tell me that if Kemba's going to miss a third of the season that they couldn't have used another guard more than.
We don't know.
Here's what we'll ultimately. This is, I mean, we go back to this every single time. Jason Tatum's going to have to do a ton. Like a ginormous load is going to have to be undertaken by him. And it feels like he's ready for it. But
this is what we talked about. The stuff you wanted to, you mentioned it earlier, Bobby. It means Tatum has the ball in his hands more. And again, there's things, if you fill the floor with shooters, I like that. That's not a bad thing necessarily. But if we just have iso ball, Tatum needs to score 45 to save them every night, that's going to be a mess. That's not going to be a great situation.
It's going to be so frustrating. You know what, John, you mentioned earlier, is that it might be Marcus Smart who starts to do a little too much, or starts to think he needs to do a little too much.
You want to see this locker room get torn apart when Marcus starts taking 22 shots a game?
We had concerns about that.
That's 15 shots. That's like roughly 15 shots from Kemba, 10 to 15 shots now. They're going to go elsewhere. Jason Tatum on a good night is already taking that number. I mean, how many shots is he going to end up taking? So, I mean, the ball will get spread around.
The point there is he's not pulling from guys. Say Kemba's out, Hayward's gone. You just got these young guys. He's not necessarily pulling from anyone. Now, unless Aaron Naismith comes out here and starts lighting the earth on fire next month, he's not pulling from anyone. And his production was good enough last year. I saw today he was one of the 10 best spot-up shooters in the NBA last year. Marcus Smart, that is.
On catch and shoot threes.
Yeah, so it's not.
He was actually top 5 almost all year long in catch and shoot threes.
Yeah, I mean, so like the issue in the bubble where you had the chairs flying and everything else, it felt like guys were pulling from each other. Now it's a little more consolidated where you just got to get shots for Smart, Brown, Tatum. Like this almost works out a lot of the issues we talked about. It's just, do these guys have the capabilities to get it done? Tatum is the ball handler, Brown freeing himself, and Smart, continuing that production next year.
Right. Go ahead, Jimmy. And
real quick, people say Pritchard's ready to play. I mean, that may have went into their pick. I mean, some people thought they may have reached a little bit on that, but I mean, we saw what happened. They gave away their last first round pick. So
Jeff Teague too. Like what?
Teague, yeah, absolutely. I mean, those.
We didn't we debate last week Wanamaker and Teague. All of a sudden, I'm not fronting Wanamaker anymore. Jeff Teague's the guy you want there if Kemba's in this spot.
Right. You're looking at a guy who's like going to try to do Kemba things. It's more of a Teague role, like that's what he does. He likes
that could help a lot. Like that move has a completely different connotation now that Kemba's out.
Like if Teague is starting for you on nights where Kemba isn't going, nobody's chalking up a loss. I mean, it just means, like you said, Bobby, that guys are going to take on a little bit bigger of a roles. We haven't even mentioned Jaylen Brown. I mean, he's the guy that everyone saw take a little bit of a leap in the bubble, but then in the playoffs, it felt like he was almost just watching a little bit too much. So maybe he's a guy that, steps up here a little bit. I know he's not like the ball handler like Kemba or anything like that, but he could take some of those shots. He can, add on to his game a little bit, and you just it's all hands on deck. It's unfortunate that you don't want to have to play your young guys. And I imagine they're going to try to limit their minutes too, because they're not trying to tire everybody out in games 1 through 20. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they need to space out the season.
if we're just talking about the players on the court here, like throw aside all the books, all the asset management, all that stuff, you sort of do end up in a spot here that we talked about, like making this all about Tatum and Brown. You clear a lot of the other guys out of the way, and not necessarily Smart here, but Smart gives you value on the other end, and it's all about those two at this point. Now the problem is you have a damaged asset in Kemba. You got nothing for Hayward yet as of now. You probably look to that trade too and see what's going to come back for that. There's a lot of management things that we can still rip Danny for. But in terms of what's there on the court next year, if we're just thinking about that, they can work with this.
Well, let's rip Danny a little bit. But
All right.
first
Bobby,
off,
go back to Mount Waters though too. Don't forget.
I know the two-way. Anyway, so let's quickly tell people about the sponsor, Manscaped. Biggest grooming. Our friends at Manscaped are here to remind you to take care of your biggest grooming and hygiene needs from head to toe with the all-in-one Manscaped Performance Package Kit. What do you get out of this? Lawnmower 3.0. That's good stuff right there
that's key
for the close shave down there. Weed whacker, ear and nose hair trimmer. Also the crop preserver, which is deodorant for down below. You've got foot powder, which is a foot duster. You have Manscaped cologne. You have a carry-on bag, boxer briefs that keep your junk together. And you get all of that. And you get 20% off. That's the best part. 20% off and free shipping with the code GARDEN20 at manscaped.com. Once again, 20% off and free shipping with the code GARDEN20 at manscaped.com.